Ausgabe SI Talk, AMP German Cannabis. Alex Blodgett habe ich bei mir, wie schon eigentlich auch die letzten paar Monate. Ich glaube, das erste Mal habe ich im Interview im Mai, dann im September nochmal, und ich habe einen Conflict of Interest, ich bin Aktionär. Alex, thank you to have time. I said in my German introduction, I have a conflict of interest, I'm a shareholder, and your name, German Cannabis. Yes, and cannabis was a big run 2018. Everybody wants in the sector. It was also a big run in the beginning of 2019, but the last 8 months was a disaster for especially Canadian cannabis stocks. You're doing great, I must say. The first interview what you're doing was, I think, was 15 cents or 20 cents, we was around. Or at this time you do a placement at 15 cents, I think. And now you're trading at 33, 34 around. So you're doing great, but a lot of other companies' stocks not. So what you're doing you better, and I like it, and I'm a shareholder, what are you doing better than the other ones?
So that's a great question, and there are a whole bunch of different answers. There's what we're doing kind of on the strategic side, which is, we're the only pure play company importing into the German market. There are a lot of other players who are purporting to want to get into Germany, but they've got businesses all over the world. So there are strategic reasons that I think we're really well positioned, and I think the market understands that. But the other thing is we're investing, because we're a pure play in Germany, we're solely focused on Germany, we're actually investing the time and money into making sure that the German investor understands what we're doing. And I think a lot of the excitement, certainly in 2020, is going to be in Europe. And I think a lot of the cannabis stocks, for a German investor, by way of example, is at the same place where Canadian stocks were probably, say 24 months ago. I mean, it's all early for them. They're seeing this for the first time. And the European market, certainly from a consumer standpoint, or a patient standpoint, is going to really take off. And so you're going to see a lot of growth in that market. Not suggesting that Canada is mature, but legalization happened a year ago, December. So that story's been played out, and that it'll obviously continue to grow. But there's not a lot of new excitement there. Cannabis 2.0, which is, as you probably know, is ingestible cannabis products like edibles and vaporizers and that sort of stuff. That's now being introduced into the marketplace. And then of course the Canadian stocks were just all, I think everyone acknowledged, way overvalued. And so the market came crashing down. I think, and then of course at the end of the year is going to be a lot of tax law selling. But you can see across the board there's a rising tide as we're going into 2020, but I think the real play is going to be over in Europe, and we're spending the money in Europe communicating our story into the marketplace. If you look at our volume, on the Canadian Securities Exchanges, the CSE, we do good volume. Not an insignificant percent of our volume nowadays is coming from Europe.
So, but when everybody moves to Europe, are there new competitors?
When you say everyone moves to Europe, you're talking about from a competitive standpoint?
Yeah, so that when the Canadian companies say Europe is now the first choice, are they now competitors? Or?
Well, I think a big issue right now, anyone who's been following this space knows that a lot of the cultivators are really low on cash. And so, and I think a lot of the companies, when their stock, which is the principal currency for raising money and doing acquisitions, those are all at these lofty price levels. All these companies are going for world domination. Well, they don't have those resources. They got negative cash flow. Their quarterly burn is huge, and a lot of those companies are retrenching. And so they purport to be in all these different markets. The reality is, I think a lot of them are focusing in on things that are in their own backyard. A lot of Canadian companies, for example, are focusing in on the recreational market. That's low-hanging fruit. It's right here. I think another issue is, I think it's been a real shock to a lot of people when they get in there and try to understand this EU GMP certification process. And I think a lot of certainly smaller companies and even the big companies have run into a stone wall trying to deal with that. And I think that's been that's put certain checks and balances in terms of people coming into that market. Right now, there are half a dozen companies that are importing product into Germany. And just to kind of put it into perspective, 2017, maybe there's 1,500 kilograms. 2018, there was 2,800 kilograms. It's difficult to, I can't tell you with absolute clarity what those numbers are. 2019, maybe that number was, 35 or 4,000 kilograms. I mean, there's no product coming into the German marketplace. So everyone's talking about it as exciting, but the reality is from the German patient's perspective, there's very little product out there.
Okay. So, this is in general the cannabis market. So coming back to your company, what are you planning now for 2020? When we sit down 1 year in 21, how's the company looks like?
So, we haven't provided specific guidance on revenues at this point. We've tried to be cautious about that, but I can say with clarity or confidence that what I suggested we would do when you and I met the first time and when we met the second time, we're on that track. And so, and you may recall, we suggested that we're going to start shipping product basically the first half of the year. At this point, we're going to start shipping, importing product towards the end of Q1, and that product is coming out of the Netherlands. Q2, we're going to start shipping product out of Canada, and as we get into kind of towards the end of the year, we'll pick up more Canadian suppliers into that market, and then thereafter, we're already in discussions with groups out of Denmark, out of Portugal, and then what we refer as kind of rest of the world. So Jamaica and Australia and South Africa, and perhaps there'll be an opportunity at some point to pull product out of Israel. But at this point, we'll start shipping product this quarter.
Okay, so this is the major breakthrough. Starting revenue, the first product would come in out of Netherlands first, into the German, and in the second half or in the second quarter?
Second quarter.
Second quarter. Yeah. So that's only 4 or 5 months. Then you will starting shipping from Canada to Germany.
Correct.
Revenue number is clear. It's always tough to say, especially then come to a price. Is it still the same price model, or model is not the right word, the pricing is what we have now than 6 months ago?
Yeah, well, for internal modeling purposes, we're on the assumption, we were pretty conservative beforehand. There was an expectation that we would purchase from a licensed producer, by way of example, at €2. Our wholesale distributors would buy that product for €4. They would sell it to the pharmacist for probably €6, and the pharmacist would sell it to the patient through a doctor, say €15.
But €15 is still cheap. I think normally prices are around €30 or something. Yep. So it's mean that the price will going down. But what's mean on the other hand, then you see more people asking for them, then the price is generally coming down. At €2 is. I was a little bit surprised when I saw the Canopy quarterly numbers, and they say they get 80 cents per gram. So €2 means also that it's a special. Then you have EU certificated product, and this is higher prices.
Yeah, I don't know what Canopy is doing. I guess the first question is that recreational, or is that medical cannabis? Because if they're selling medical, if they're selling recreational,
I'm not going so deep into the reason why I follow is only then a lot of these companies running around in the old days and say we get $8, and then you see 80 cents. Yeah. So I say, this is a realistic number now.
Well, what I can say with clarity is what we're learning from dealing with licensed producers, our conversations with their distribution partner. And I think right now I mentioned €15. I think the current market is like 22. So the average that a patient in Germany is paying is roughly €22. So we've been conservative.
It's still coming price down. Then for sure, when more product is there, the price should go.
Well, again, we're being conservative, and I think there is a hypothesis which says the supply of product in the German market could actually decrease before it increases.
Okay.
I mean, give you an example. You may be aware. Aurora, for example, is one of the importers into Germany. Well, they unfortunately got themselves in the penalty box through this EU GMP certification process, and they're a great company. But they went through the right protocol for irradiating their product, which everyone who imports product into Germany is required to do, but they didn't actually get that step EU GMP certified, and basically the regulators shut them down for a period of time until they get that certificate in place. And so, it's not an easy proposition. Mm-hmm. Just as another point of interest, right now all that product is being imported. There is no domestic cultivation, but the German government issued licenses to 3 different groups this past summer in May, and there's a requirement that. There's a requirement that they have to generate their first harvest within 18 months, and so there's an expectation that if everyone can deliver on that first harvest, that there'll be domestic production at some point in 2021. Mm-hmm. But again, that's that's all public information, and the contracts are small quantities.
This is not a problem for you, then you are not a grower.
No, we're supplier agnostic. Yeah. So that's not an issue for us at all.
Anything other what investors should know? What do you say when somebody asks you, what are the reasons why I should invest in your company?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, it's I don't think the theme has changed at all. Depending how one defines competition, we have lots of competition. Everyone who's a cultivator who produces product is potentially is a competitor. There are a number of companies that purport to kind of do similar stuff to what we do, which is they basically buy and they subsequently sell. Our value add is one, our understanding of this EU GMP certification. Mm-hmm. We have one of the largest pharmaceutical consulting firms out of Germany that help us do the gap analysis, the audits, and they have the credibility as well as our own management team with the state authorities, which is required in order to get this mm-hmm. certification. So I think our distinct value add is we understand that process, and whereas you'll see a lot of the cultivators running in, as I mentioned earlier, running into obstacles in terms of trying to get that certification. And then the people that are kind of effectively middlemen or facilitators, such as ourselves, all they really do is they buy and they sell. It becomes the cultivator's responsibility to get the EU GMP certification. Mm-hmm. Our uniqueness is we take responsibility for that. We take the licensed producer through that EU GMP certification. So that's our responsibility, our value add, so that we're in a position to offer a product that we know is going to be imported into Germany. Mm-hmm. And so it's easy to get the export licenses, the import mm-hmm. licenses, all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. And no one else is doing that. And we're the only company that's really qualifying suppliers, take them through the EU GMP certification, that's solely focused in on Germany.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Ja, thank you for the update. So, war jetzt, glaube ich, ein ganz gutes Update. Es geht voran. Das wichtigste Punkt ist eindeutig, erstes Quartal geht es mit der Lieferung los. Die ersten Produkte kommen aus Holland. Zweite Quartal kommen Produkte aus Kanada dazu. Das heißt, ein Angebot sozusagen, also sie werden beliefert aus Kanada, und das ist dann endlich einmal sozusagen der Zeitpunkt, wo auch dann der Umsatz reinkommt und dementsprechend auch der Profit gemacht wird. Er hat ja selber dann beschrieben, die Margen, die er dementsprechend, er kauft für 2 ein, verkauft es weiter für 4, klingt super, weil es ist 100% Draufschlag oder Aufschlag auf das, aber man darf nicht vergessen, welche Leistungen sie halt auch dementsprechend reinbringen. Und von daher ist es ganz wichtig auch, dass man sich das dementsprechend anschaut, was machen denn also was macht die Firma, was kommt für ein Produkt rein, welchen Umsatz machen sie daraus. Und deswegen geht es durchaus okay, dass sie da dementsprechend 100% aufschlagen, und die richtigen Profit macht natürlich auch dann erst die Apotheke, die dann richtig nur mehr ein Markup drauf nimmt und gleich mal nur mehr über 100% zulegt. Spannend ist, sie kalkulieren mit einem Verkaufspreis von ungefähr 15 Euro. Er sagt, der Durchschnittspreis ist momentan 22 Euro. Es ist realistisch, dass dieser Preis auch erreichbar ist, denn wenn mehr natürlich Produkte in den Markt kommen, wird der Preis auch dann normalerweise billiger. Aber die Frage ist, wer kann überhaupt liefern, wer hat die EU-Zertifizierung, und dafür sind sie eigentlich spezialisiert, dass quasi sie schauen, wer kann oder was muss der Produzent machen, damit er seine EU-Zertifizierung hat. Das ist eigentlich eher das, wie es ja so schon sagt, das ist eine Wertschöpfung, die sie für die Leute, für die Produzenten auch bringen können, damit ein zertifiziertes Produkt auch dann am deutschen Markt kommt. Ja, und jetzt warten wir mal ab, in die ersten paar Monate, also in den nächsten 2-3 Monaten muss ja die erste Lieferung losgehen, das heißt von dort startet es dann beim Umsatz und dann sollte das eigentlich Schlag auf Schlag gehen und da wird auch dann dementsprechend der Newsflow deutlich größer werden. In der Zwischenzeit machen sie auch, glaube ich, jetzt gerade nur Finanzierung, 25 Cent. Das könnte allerdings, wenn das Video online ist, auch schon wieder Geschichte sein, denn ja, solche Placements sind nicht lang offen und die werden dann auch relativ schnell wieder geschlossen. Das war's von AMP German Cannabis im Jänner 2020 Vancouver. Thank you.
Thank you.